In your book, you discuss the transformation from being a radical opponent to a supporter of nuclear. Can you go over in general terms the basic reasons, in your opinion, in terms of environment, safety, and energy balance that should motivate people to rehabilitate in their minds the building of nuclear plants and the use of nuclear energy?
I think it's time for a nuclear renaissance, and there seems to be a lot of motivation out there for a renaissance, not just among the people in the nuclear world, but the climatologists, for example, people concerned about the environment. I think that is the big driver. I think among politicians, they have to explain to their public why carbon, what we can do about reducing carbon emissions and therefore global warming. So these issues are very popular topics in the media. And when people understand that nuclear power does not emit greenhouse gases, the environmental footprint of a nuclear plant is very small, then that is a motivator to support nuclear power. So really getting out, you don't have to exaggerate the facts about nuclear power, just get the basic information out and compare it to other energy sources and the risks and benefits of other energy sources. And then also be quick to debunk the wrong ideas that come out in the media.
A lot of people say that it is important to contribute to the base load using renewable energy sources. And you explain very well in your book that to guarantee significant contribution to the base load, you do need energy that is more reliable than renewable energy sources, such as nuclear. Can you summarize your views on this?
The media often leads us to think that wind power and solar power and other renewable energy sources can meet all of increased energy demand worldwide. And energy demand is going up rapidly, especially in developing countries. In fact, wind and solar and other renewables have their place, but they cannot meet baseload electricity demand, which our civilization requires 24 hours a day.
Why do you think the proponents of nuclear plants are not properly communicating the advantages of nuclear energy?
I have often wondered why the nuclear industry does not communicate better the benefits versus the risks of nuclear power. Because people wildly exaggerate the risks due to all kinds of misinformation, which has flooded into the vacuum left by absence of communication about the facts, sometimes by the nuclear industry. They're reluctant to compare nuclear power to fossil fuel, for example, or to say that waste spills from coal plants, which release toxic waste and pollute the water supply, are far worse than any incident that's happened in an American nuclear plant. That's a comparison, but these utilities that own nuclear plants often own coal plants also, so they are a little nervous about saying anything bad about fossil fuels. So I think it's going to take independence, people who are independent of the industry who can talk, like people like Stuart Brand, for example, about the importance of nuclear power. Climatologists are very much in favor of nuclear power as a way to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. The more the media learns from, well, I don't know if the media people are reading my book, but books like mine, and understand that these risks have been exaggerated and the benefits have been downplayed, that will help a lot. The message needs to get out that nuclear power is clean, it is safer than fossil fuel combustion, and that it can provide baseload electricity, whereas renewables can't do that.
What would you say to assuage people's fear about radiation exposure from nuclear plants?
After the Chernobyl accident, people were quite concerned about exposure to radiation, to radioactive material emitted by the plume that came out of the Chernobyl fire. And there was a lot of talk by scientists and doctors and so on about the dangers of this material. But time has shown that really it did not cause any uptick in cancers in other countries, very little impact in Ukraine and Belarus. In fact, the total death toll after all these years, that occurred in 1987, this is 2009, the death toll has remained directly 51 people plus about 9 people who unfortunately got thyroid cancer because they were not given potassium iodide to block the exposure to radiation. Tens of thousands of deaths that were predicted didn't occur. However, people remember those predictions which were not accurate and think about those. But in fact, there are many independent studies, international studies, UN studies, and so on that indicate that the plume did not produce harm. So let's say an Italian housewife who remembers being told not to eat salad and is worried about her children eating contaminated produce from a nuclear plant needn't be. The other important thing to know about Chernobyl that few people do know is that the reason for the dispersal of radioactive material was the lack of a containment structure. It effectively did not have containment in the way that nuclear plants do in the West.
Many people feel that it takes a long time to build nuclear plants. Is that a reasonable concern?
In the United States, an effort has been made by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to streamline the bureaucratic process involved in licensing reactors. They have chosen, at the Nuclear Regulatory Agency, some standardized designs so that instead of building one-of-a-kind reactors, which has been our practice in this country, we're now able to choose from some very good advanced designs that are very practical and useful and that can be built more quickly because the designs are more streamlined with fewer pipes and valves and so on. So the bureaucratic process, which has slowed nuclear power plant construction, has really been helped by this decision. We'll see what happens in practice. The other thing is that from a technical point of view, there's no reason a nuclear plant can't be built in about 5 years, and some countries have achieved that.
Is there enough uranium, and can we safely deal with nuclear waste?
In Europe and in the United States, there are 2 points of contention about the nuclear fuel cycle. And these are exploited a lot by Greenpeace and other anti-nuclear activists. One is the assumption that uranium is going to be depleted as an energy source very quickly if we build all these nuclear plants. This is not the case. Uranium is very abundant in the Earth's crust, and there are whole fields of it, whole veins of it that haven't been exploited at all. I'm told that we have enough in known reserves to power reactors for hundreds of years, including new reactors. Also, uranium has an advantage that no other fuel does, which is that it can be recycled many times, as is done in France, so that the ultimate residue in the nuclear fuel cycle is very small. A family of 4 in France, after 20 years, has as their share of the waste a little cylinder the size of a small cigarette lighter. That would be their volume of ultimate waste. That waste is easily disposed of in a deep geologic repository. There's a functioning, the world's first deep geologic repository is successfully functioning in the United States and has been for 10 years in New Mexico.
Do we really need to wait for 4th-generation reactors in order to get really safe nuclear power plants?
I don't agree. I think that the Generation 3 reactors and the Generation 3.5 reactors, with their passive safety features and their simplified systems, are efficient. And in fact, old plants are working more efficiently than ever because they've been repeatedly upgraded and parts replaced over the years. So we have worldwide 436 reactors, and most of them are operating at really high capacity. So let's go ahead with the Generation 3 and 3.5, and when the 4th generation comes along, great, we can use that.